Good afternoon. This is Christina Pastor
And Eric Bosman
with Kimley Horn and Associates. We are providing you a recording of the information presented at the November 18th public meeting for the Comprehensive Transportation Plan update for the City of Milton. This information can be used to assist you with the MetroQuest survey so that you can provide information on areas where transportation improvements would be helpful around the city. Thanks for listening in with us. So first of all, we want to talk a little bit about what a Comprehensive Transportation Plan, or CTP, is. It's an opportunity for all of the different planning efforts that have happened all across the city and across the region to be combined with opportunities for public engagement, and that all feeds up into the Comprehensive Transportation Plan. Now beyond that, this information will be really helpful for the City of Milton to continue to find great projects to implement throughout the city. But in addition to that, it's to help identify larger scale regional projects that will be recommended in the North Fulton Comprehensive Transportation Plan. The previous North Fulton CTP was completed in 2010, and it will be updated beginning this coming year in 2016. So the results of the Milton CTP will feed into the North Fulton CTP. And then eventually that plan will help feed into the Regions Plan, which is being conducted by the Atlanta Regional Commission, the metropolitan planning organization that is responsible for planning for the entire 20-county metro region in Atlanta. So this is a really important process, not only to help Milton, but then also to help the region in its planning effort. We'll consider a number of different modes throughout this process, but in particular, we'll be focusing on vehicular, transit, bicycle, and pedestrian opportunities. Looking back to the 2009 CTP completed in Milton, we wanted to take a look to see how many different types of projects had been completed or at least initiated since that time. There were 30 intersection projects recommended in the 2009 CTP. Of those, 12 projects have been completed or are currently under construction, and an additional 17 projects have been initiated, which means that only one of the 30 intersection projects recommended in the original CTP have actually not started. This is fantastic progress made by the City of Milton and a great way to see your tax dollars at work. In addition to intersection projects, there's a number of road and bridge maintenance projects that have been completed. Nearly 44 miles of roads have been repaved, 9 bridges have been repaired, and 2 bridges have been completely replaced. There are a number of other projects that have been completed, including bicycle and pedestrian projects with over 13 miles of sidewalks completed and nearly 12 miles of paved or bikeable shoulders. There's one major corridor project that is underway, and that's the State Route 9 widening project. The design work began in 2013. The right-of-way is programmed to be completed in 2019, and it is scheduled for construction in 2022. These projects are very large and time-consuming. So this is great progress to see the State Route 9 project moving forward. And a number of policies have also been implemented, including the recently adopted Impact Fee program. So lots of great things have been happening in Milton since the 2009 CTP. So who's involved in this process? Members of the public throughout the community, as well as the City Council and Mayor that represent them, are the largest stakeholder. We have a project management team that is mostly City of Milton staff, and a consultant team that is assisting the city with the effort. The overall project will take approximately 1 year. We began in August of this year doing some of the initial visioning efforts and collecting a lot of the early existing condition data, which involves a lot of inventory and mapping. We are moving into the needs assessment phase, which this MetroQuest survey and presentation are really focused specifically on. And then beginning early next year and through the middle of June of 2016, we'll be focused on developing recommendations and getting feedback from the public. There are a number of public engagement opportunities throughout this process. There are 2 rounds of public meetings. The first public meeting occurred on Wednesday, November 18th. At the Milton Public Library. This meeting was focused on understanding where transportation needs exist throughout the city. There will be another public meeting in the spring of 2016, and that will be focused on vetting draft recommendations with the public. We also recognize that not everyone can come out to public meetings, that everyone has a very busy schedule, and we also need to go to the community where they already are. We have been to 2 football games this year, one for Milton High School and one for Cambridge High School. In the spring, we will be at Bell Memorial Park, as well as the Milton Hometown Jubilee, to look for more feedback from the community. We're also going to be conducting 3 different focus groups, one focused on bicycle needs, one for pedestrian needs, and one focused on individuals who may have disabilities or other mobility challenges and special transportation considerations. If you have an interest in participating in one of these focus groups, please email us at the project email address, and we will make sure that you are notified of when the focus groups will occur. There are a number of other website and social media opportunities to engage. The website is constantly being updated with new information. We have videos such as this, as well as polling, and we're making use of the existing Facebook and Twitter accounts for the City of Milton to provide input through social media. There's currently one MetroQuest survey happening right now, and there will be another one in the spring. We strongly encourage you, if you have been unable to participate in the public meeting or to provide feedback on where you see needs, to please participate in the MetroQuest survey. The link to the survey can be found on the website for the City of Milton for the next approximately 1 month. So we want to talk a little bit about who lives in Milton and maybe what some of the transportation considerations might be. So we looked at the 2030 population density because it's always very important to understand where people live. The areas that are darkest, that dark brown color, is the areas of greatest density where we have more than 4,000 people per square mile. The lightest yellow area shows where the fewest number of people per square mile live within the City of Milton. Not surprisingly, most of the density and residential living is focused near the Georgia 400 and State Route 9 and Deerfield area on the east side. We also wanted to take a look at the age of the population because different age individuals have different transportation considerations. The darkest areas are where people 50 and older are located, and the light blue colors are where the median age is younger than 35 years old. We also compared the age distribution to the Georgia and national averages. You can see that the population between 35 and 54, as well as the population between 5 and 14, is larger in Milton percentage-wise than it is for the national and Georgia averages. On the other side, though, ages between 20 and 29, there's a much smaller percentage in Milton, likely because of younger people leaving to go to college and leaving the City of Milton.
So oftentimes when we think about transportation, it's important to think about where people are today and where their destinations are in terms of going to work and obtaining goods and services. So first we want to look at some of the national market considerations and what's shaping real estate and development and transportation both nationally and regionally. So we look across the U.S. population today, 46% of our national population are millennials and baby boomers. Just recently, the millennial generation has passed the baby boomers as the largest age cohort within our country, with millennials now comprising 24% of the U.S. population and baby boomers comprising 22% of the U.S. population. What's interesting is that these younger folks and older folks have very similar preferences when it comes to what they're looking for in terms of housing. Places that are housing that is within walkable places, that's near goods and services, that offers a low maintenance lifestyle. And while the traditional suburban development types dominated our real estate market over the last several decades, what we're now seeing is the growth of walkable activity centers as a key driver of real estate within our country. And you see these same things happening within the Atlanta metropolitan region as our household formation has stabilized over the last several years, really since 2007, partly due to demographics and partly due to the Great Recession, as well as a decreasing amount of household size and a decline in the overall percentage of home ownership within the U.S. and regional population around Atlanta. And while these factors are driving many of our region's real estate trends and decisions, Milton itself is on a somewhat different course. What we see happening within the city of Milton, as Christina talked about our demographics earlier, is that Milton is largely a place for families with children. And while that is the case demographically, we've also seen a great deal of growth as the city has added over 18,000 new residents since the year 2000, a little over 1,000 residents per year on average. And as it's families that are households with children, what you're seeing is an increase in the household size within the city of Milton, as well as an increase in the median household income, which is significantly larger than the average of the Atlanta metropolitan region, and that the share of owner-occupied housing within the city of Milton is actually increasing. So several divergent pieces within the city of Milton when we look at the economy versus what's happening on a regional and national basis. Now, Christina showed a little bit earlier where population is located in Milton today. And so that's where most people start their daily trips, and in their daily trips is from home. But let's look at a couple more bigger picture items. First, where do people that live in the city of Milton work? And so the splatter map on the screen now shows you the darker areas are where there are a greater number of jobs where Milton residents are driving to those locations on a daily basis. And what you'll notice is that's largely the Georgia 400 corridor between Holcomb Bridge and Windward Parkway, as well as Perimeter Center, Buckhead, Midtown, Downtown, and the area around Emory University and the CDC in East Atlanta. If you look at the flip side and look to see where people who work in Milton live, then you see the reverse commuting pattern as you continue to draw folks from Forsyth County, from West Gwinnett, from East Cobb and East Cherokee, as well as folks that live closer to the perimeter. And that's about 10,000 individuals a day that are driving from their home to the city of Milton. And those 10,000 jobs within the city of Milton are heavily located in two locations, the Deerfield area and the Crabapple area. Less than 10% of the folks who hold those 10,000 jobs are residents of the city of Milton. Most people who live in Milton are commuting out, and those who occupy jobs within the city of Milton are largely commuting in. And this slide shows that from a numbers standpoint. On a daily basis right now, approximately 9,500 employees who live elsewhere commute into the city of Milton, while over 15,000 Milton residents commute out of the city. Today, there are just over 800 Milton residents who leave their home on a daily basis for a job where their workplace is also within the city of Milton. Now, while that is a very low percentage, it is 2 times the percentage what it was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, when the transportation plan was updated, that number was less than 400 individuals. So habits and lifestyles are changing, but overall, our transportation pattern in the Atlanta metropolitan region and echoed within the city of Milton is that our commuting patterns contribute to the amount of traffic congestion on our roadways. Now, recognizing that's a problem that won't be easily overcome, that has a little bit to do with where people live and where they choose to live based on where their job is. But there's also another driver, and that's shopping and retail goods and services and neighborhood goods and services. And within the city of Milton, we have several locations where there are concentrations of commercial development, office, retail, goods and services that people need to access on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Those areas of concentration include the Deerfield Activity Center at Georgia 400 and Windward Parkway, the Crabapple area, the Arnold Mill Corridor, where there's a limited number of commercial outlets, and the Birmingham Crossroads area in North Milton. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in Deerfield and Crabapple, in particular, the city of Milton's 2 largest activity centers. In Deerfield, there's a large concentration of regional activity as well as local activity. Deerfield is home to most of the city's major commercial office buildings, many of those occupied by Verizon Wireless, over in the Deerfield area. But it's also a local activity center, as there are a number of local goods and services and shopping along Windward Parkway and Highway 9. Most of the city's higher intensity uses, as well as our regional office and businesses, are located in the Deerfield area. And recently, the City of Milton adopted a form-based code and a transfer of development rights ordinance to make sure that the quality of future development in Deerfield matches the expectation of the city while continuing to foster a more well-rounded, walkable environment. If Deerfield is the most intense area within the city of Milton, Crabapple is more of the small-scale, local, village center, downtown type environment for the city of Milton. It's where we have a collection of local retail, goods, services, and restaurants, as well as the future home of the Milton City Hall. And as well, the city of Milton recently adopted a form-based code and a transfer of development rights for ordinance for Crabapple as well. So most of the city's future development is intended to go within the Deerfield and the Crabapple activity centers in order to keep the central portion and the Milton the north area of Milton more passive and more rural within the coming years. If we look beyond the city of Milton, I think it's also important to look at regional development patterns and where might people, as they're coming to and from and through the city of Milton, be going. Now, we know there are households, again, to the east and the north and the west, but from a commercial standpoint for goods and services, there are really four major developments where folks may be going from the city of Milton or through the city of Milton to access these areas without getting on Georgia 400. Those include the activity center of downtown Woodstock, the significant level of investment that has occurred and is occurring in downtown Alpharetta, the Avalon mixed-use development at Westside Parkway and Old Milton Parkway, and the projection of a large commercial center in South Forsyth off of Ronald Reagan Parkway, just east of Georgia 400. And that development pattern will be anticipated to pick up significantly if the Georgia 400 interchange at McGinnis Ferry Road is completed over the next several years.
Thank you, Eric. So the next three sections are really our breakout groups conducted in the public meetings. This information will be helpful to you as you're completing your MetroQuest survey to think about roadway, transit, and bicycle pedestrian improvements that you would like to recommend. So we want to give you just a little bit of background that may help you think about different transportation projects that you would like to recommend. First, let's talk a little bit about roadways. During the 2009 CTP, we used the Atlanta Regional Commission's travel demand model to help us project future traffic. That model considers population and employment increases all throughout the entire region and helps to project what types of traffic might be on the roadways. So that model projected it from 2010 out to 2030. We averaged that growth back to an annual growth rate, so looking at 1 year, and then compared it with actual traffic counts on the roadway. The Georgia Department of Transportation conducts traffic counts every year on roadways all across the state. The dots on the map show you where those count locations are. So we averaged the growth over the 5-year period and compared that 1 year growth, average growth, with the growth projected in the model. And as you can see from the dots on the map, the majority of count locations show that the observed traffic on the roadways in Milton is lower than what we projected in the model. And the majority of areas where you do see some sort of larger than projected growth tends to be in the areas of highest commercial and office development along the 400 corridor and in parts of Alpharetta. So this is great news for Milton and the projects that were recommended as a part of the 2009 CTP being able to continue to accommodate the traffic coming through the city. This is a graphic of the travel demand model that I mentioned on the last slide. This is the 2015 PM roadway level of service. Level of service works very much like when you were in school. An A or B level of service is really great, and that's shown in blue. Likewise, a really, really poor level of service, also known as level of service F, is shown in red. And so using this, you can see, particularly in the PM, that people are commuting to the north either through Milton and maybe 2 other surrounding counties like Cherokee and Forsyth. This really doesn't look at intersections, and it really focuses on the volume of roadway versus the capacity that that road is able to provide. Using that understanding, we look forward to the 2040 PM model, and this assumes that no transportation improvements have been made. Only population and employment growth through 2040 has been included. You can see many of the roadways become darker, and more of the roadways particularly are showing as a level of service F. And so we expect that by 2040 the roadways will become more congested as what we would expect. So let's move on to transit. This map shows where transit is currently located within the city of Milton. For the most part, it's really only bus routes that exist at this northern end. The blue shaded area shows you where the paratransit service for MARTA exists. Anyone that lives within 3/4 of a mile of an existing bus or rail facility, stop if you will, is able to request paratransit service for additional mobility needs that they might have. There's also the red dashed line that shows the future MARTA rail extension, part of the Connect 400 project that is projected to terminate in the Windward area in the long-term future. So we've included that on the map for your reference. As we think about transit, we recognize transit isn't necessarily for everyone, but there are a couple of different things that we need to be considering as we move forward. First of all, it's important to have enough people to make transit successful. It would be great if we could have transit buses and trains in many places all throughout the region, but we recognize that it's important that there are enough people to be able to ride those to make it really successful. And so what we've done is take the existing MARTA routes and provide a 1/4 mile walking buffer around those and then overlay it on the population density map. So we can see where the population is currently located relative to where the MARTA routes, the 1/4 mile between the walking routes are. It's also important not only to think about where the density of people exist, but also that there are some people who depend more on transit than others. While we recognize that Milton, compared to much of the region, has a lower poverty rate than other parts of the region, it is important to keep in mind that some people may still depend on transit as their primary source of transportation. And so once again, we have overlaid the transit buffer on top of the individual poverty map. And then finally, it's important for us to consider age as we think about transit. Many millennials, for instance, would prefer not to have to drive a car. Additionally, as people age, they maybe have mobility challenges that they are not able to drive a car. And so it's important that we look at transit access relative to an aging population. Our final section is on bicycle and pedestrian access and improvements. The map that you see here is also the table map that is included online. This map shows the existing bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure all throughout the city of Milton, and it's overlaid on a number of different activity centers and destinations throughout the city that people would enjoy or appreciate being able to walk or bike to, including schools, libraries, the existing and future city hall, and other community facilities. This is important to think about as we prioritize our transportation investments. It would be great to be able to build many sidewalks and bike lanes and other trail facilities, but we recognize that money is limited and we need to figure out the most appropriate locations for where those investments should take place. And so it's important that we think about some of the destinations where we would like to connect. We hope this has been helpful to you in your effort to consider different transportation needs. Once again, we encourage you to use the MetroQuest survey as your opportunity to provide feedback on different transportation investments and needs throughout the city of Milton. There's much more information provided on the website with all of the boards that were included at the meeting, as well as the table maps that were used. You can access all of those as well as the link to the MetroQuest survey to provide your feedback. And as always, we are available through email and phone if you have any other further specific questions. Thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing back from you on your transportation needs.